Alright everyone, now comes everybody's favorite part in UFTA, and that is liquidation, right? If you've seen previous videos, this is by far the most demanding topic to fathom in UFTA, and so we just want to try to get a good handle on it here. Okay, so what is liquidation again? All you're doing is you're moving funds around to target whatever particular needs you might have throughout the game, in case you run out of hunger tokens, right? And so here we have the classic examples. If I want to liquidate something, I put the marker token on. You can liquidate marker tokens on adversity cards and planted field crops. Okay, those are the only two items that liquidation can happen on. Okay, just so we're clear. And what are the bare bones rules again? Well, if I want to liquidate something, here's a card. It's got my marker token on. I simply liquidate it, and the token, depending on whether or not it's the last 5, right? The last 5 marker tokens, that will determine whether or not you get to keep the tokens as a grower, or whether you have to return them to the depository. Okay, so in this case, back to the example, we have 5 tokens on a card. In this case, if I play the card, then I am going to be able to keep this last 5 tokens, right? So that's a case where we're not really liquidating, but we've reached the bare basement minimum of marker tokens, and those we always get to keep. Okay, now the other concept linked to that one is the concept of fruition. Okay, when something comes to fruition, that's where the decisive moment of whether the hunger tokens on the card, whether the marker tokens on the card stay with the grower or leave the grower. Okay, so what is the concept of fruition? If the card is being played, you have a typical adversity card like this one, and you play it on someone, to the left, to the right, it doesn't matter what. Playing the card is bringing it to fruition. So whatever the token amount is on the card at that point is either going to be lost to the hunger token depository, or it's going to be collected by the grower. Okay, and so wait, how do we determine that again? Well, it's either the last 5 tokens or it's not. If it's the last 5 tokens, you get to keep the tokens, and the card gets played on others, right? Now, the same goes for the additional rule of the 3-tier reward system. That utilizes adversity cards as well, and so the same holds true for them. If I have my 3 cards, let's say I have my last 5 marker tokens on them, like so, right? So here's the cards. I got last 5 on them. If I play these cards in order to collect rewards from a purchase action in the resource shop, then of course that is also coming to fruition, which means of course that if I have the last 5 marker tokens on there, those are going to be kept again by the grower. And the reason that's so is that the idea of fruition means that the marker token fulfilled its duty and obligation to protect the asset, right? It protected the asset up to that point, so it's a job well done, and the grower is rewarded, compensated for protecting the asset well, and so they get to keep the marker tokens. They revert back to hunger tokens, and you get to use them in your general funds to do whatever you want to do. Okay, so that takes care of the concept of fruition and the last 5. Things get a little trickier though. Well, before we move on, let's also talk about planted field crops. Okay, so planted field crops, they hold the same status basically as adversity cards, in the sense that if you place marker tokens on them to protect them, when the crop comes to fruition, the last 5 tokens are also kept by the grower as a reward for a job well done. And so the concept of fruition also applies to planted field crops. But here's a very important point, nuance to understand. Fruition for a planted field crop only happens on the last phase of farm production. And what is the last phase? Well, that's harvesting, right? And so, in this particular case, here's a standard textbook example. I have 5 tokens on my planted field crop, but it hasn't been cultivated or harvested yet. And on a typical turn, that's kind of what you do. You got 2 actions. So in this case, if I wanted to bring this crop to fruition, I would have to complete not only the harvesting phase, but also the cultivating phase. So in that sense, I have to make sure that I have funds available to cultivate, but I don't need funds available to harvest. And here's the reason why. Harvesting is the last phase of crop production, which means at that particular moment, once we hit the harvest phase, it means the marker tokens that were protecting the crop are no longer doing so. They've come to fruition, and they've fulfilled their obligation as protection. And so the marker tokens come off, they revert back to hunger tokens, just like on the cards, and they are collected in a grower's general funds, right? Meanwhile, of course, the carrots will continue their journey, the final harvest, and then you figure out whatever it is that they scored. Okay, so that takes care of adversity cards and planted field crops, and the concepts of fruition and the last 5 marker tokens. Okay, now we move on to the concept of excess marker tokens, and this is a more common game situation. So here's a situation where we're like, well, let's say I have a couple cards. I've got the planted field crop, but now things have gotten a little dicey. And that's because we realized these assets are valuable and they're going to be under constant attack, especially in the advanced game, by others, right? What are we going to do to protect them? Well, that's what excess marker tokens are for. You can do this. However, this is where things get tricky, because now if I want to play any of these items, meaning I want to advance them to the point where I can bring them to fruition, I first have to understand that if there's any excess marker tokens beyond the last 5, the bare minimum 5 that are protecting it, those are vulnerable. Those are vulnerable if I play the cards, okay? So for instance, I want to play this card on someone. It has 10 tokens. Well, right away, that's an excess of 5, right? Well, it means I'm going to lose any amount of tokens on there in excess of the last 5 marker tokens. And so I play the card. Here's what would happen. I would play this on this person over here, and I would immediately lose. If I try to do it this way, and I play the card, here's what would happen. I would lose the 5 tokens, right, that I know about. But I also, because this is the last 5, and I'm playing the card, I get to keep the last 5 marker tokens to myself, okay? So, the grower at this point, whenever they want to do this, they want to bring something to fruition, and they have excess marker tokens on the asset or item, they have a decision to make, and that is whether or not they want to liquidate. But here is the stipulation regarding excess marker tokens. If you want to liquidate them, you cannot do that on the same turn that you play the card or bring the asset to fruition. Okay, and so if I have excess marker tokens on these adversity cards or planted crops, it means that I have to make a decision to decide, do I want to play it on this turn where I know I'm going to lose a certain amount of excess marker tokens, or do I want to instead try to plan a little bit? Liquidation is still available, right? You know, the other general rule is with liquidation, everything is deducted in 5 marker token increments, or 5 token increments, right? So if I want to do the liquidation, I can do that. I just got to remember I can't follow through on the same turn and play the card, okay? It nullifies that possibility, okay? So in this case, what would I do? Well, I know I can't play, if I want to bring this to fruition, this planted field crop, and then I want to, let's say I want to play both of these cards. I'm going to make the decision of, hey, why don't I just liquidate now, and then on the next turn, I will be able to finish what is essentially a 2-step process, right? And so I have the marker tokens. I'm just going to liquidate them right now, always in 5 token increments. So in this case, I'm going to liquidate all 3 of them. And you're asking yourself, wait a minute, why can you do all 3? Well, because liquidation can happen across multiple assets, okay? Any number of adversity cards and any number of planted field crops can be, they can have the marker tokens liquidated off of them, okay? And so that's a key, that's just a huge concept you need to understand. Very, very useful and practical as you're playing to understand what you can and can't do. So here we're going to liquidate, in this case I want to liquidate all 3, like why not? Maybe I want to play both cards and have the expectation of maybe bringing this into harvest, or at least moving it a phase closer. So here's what I would do. I would simply liquidate all 3 assets, the marker tokens off of them. They're all reduced by 5 tokens because it's in 5 token increments. So it's going to be 5, 10, 15 tokens off. And that is collected in my general funds, right? The best way to do this is just grab from the bank, right? So I added 15 tokens to my general funds, but I'm also get to keep the last 5 marker tokens on there. So that's what I'm going to do. Here we go, like so. Okay, and so now, what is the one thing that could ruin all this? Well, the one thing would be I can't play these cards. You know, that is the kind of the price you pay for having the luxury of being able to move your financial assets around. The one penalty that you incur is you can't do it on the same turn that you liquidate. Okay, and so what I would do is I would wait until my turn again, and then hopefully with a little bit of lady luck shining, I will then get to make use of these cards. So anyway, I hope that all makes perfect sense. Liquidation will not be a mystery for you if you just understand those 2 or 3 key concepts. Okay, so I hope that does it. I hope it's very clear, and you can always just rewind the tape just to get a very deep and focused and concentrated understanding of all the key concepts mentioned here. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and enjoy your Oofda. All right, see you later, everybody.